It's week 2 of college basketball, but we are already in midseason form. We are coming at you with the biggest names and the deepest of sleepers that Jam and I both have found interesting over the past week. Jam, how we feeling, brother?
Fantastic wall-to-wall basketball. What can you ask for? Super excited.
All right, man, let's rock. What's up, y'all? The No Ceilings NBA Draft Show is live here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel. We are also on your podcast player of choice. I'm Stephen Gillaspie, joined by Jam Boozer Hines. Jam, how we feeling today, brother?
Great. I think we have a excellent slate of prospects to talk about. The headliner prospects, of course, and of course we got to hear everybody with those sicko sleepers, of course. So I'm very excited what we got planned today, or tonight, I
Me
should
too,
say.
man. Yeah, tonight, today, whenever you're listening, we are in your pocket, ready to give you all the information that you need on. Everybody is going to be talking about the big names and all that stuff, and therefore we're going to talk about it and give our take too. Then we're going to earn our paycheck because as the draft sickos, we got to talk to y'all about some players that you may not have heard of. Some of them I might not have heard of until about 72 hours ago, but that's how we get better. As soon as we find someone
Absolutely.
who we don't know, we flick on the film and see what we think. So we're going to bring the show around. But Jam, I just want to share right off the top, I had a long weekend. I was talking with you about this before we went live today. I just got back from the ATL, the A as they say. And I want to just real quick, I don't know if you saw this, Jam. Outkast got inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Did you see that?
I did see that. Well-deserved congrats to them.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that most people around our age, like, all grew up as major Outkast fans. So the whole world is probably one of my favorite, like, just songs in general. So
Yeah.
it was cool to see that. And every time I go to Atlanta, I always think about Outkast. But I was there scouting some future prospects for in the overtime elite. You know, I'm trying to get better at the grassroots stuff. I don't want to necessarily be surprised as much as I can afford to with all the scouting that I do throughout the regular season. For the draft, I'm trying to get more tapped into the grassroots scene. So I went to Overtime Elite. Me being in Southeast Georgia, Atlanta being in Northwest Georgia, I spent about 10 hours round trip on the road, and nothing makes me happier than being in my home and being on the Draft Sicko show. Jim, how was your weekend, dude?
It was great. Before I kind of get into my weekend, I just want to say a little bit behind the scenes here. I know before the season, one of the things that you wanted to do was continuously get more tapped into the grassroots scene. And I feel like you've done an excellent job of immersing yourself in that very, very early into the season. So shout out to you. That's what it's about, getting better. So
Appreciate you, brother.
yeah, of course, want to start off with that. But my weekend was great. Got a chance to go see Georgetown and Clemson. Get to see your boy Carter Welling out there
Carter
as
Welling.
well. So it was a very fun game. Enjoy that. Really great atmosphere. For Georgetown, it's very tough to play in an NBA arena, but the student section came out at a good overall turnout, not just from the students, but just from the crowd in general. So it was a really good environment for that game. And, just football Sunday, catched up with some basketball stuff, and did a little hooping over the weekend per usual. And
Jam Boozer, he's back.
And we're ready to roll and talk about some prospects.
That's what's up, man. I love whenever we get a chance to like break away and actually do some basketball. I'm looking forward to getting on the hardwood this week myself. But Jam, there's a lot of basketball to be played. Over at the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel, we have a lot of projects that we got off the ground. I was on the night shift last night with Metcalf. If you listen to that, we're going to talk about some of the prospects that were mentioned then, because like I said, the draft sickos, we like the big names too. Okay. And I want to hear Jam's opinion on some of these players because we've talked about them in the preseason. I like doing these just continuous check-ins throughout the year. And like we said, we're going to get sick with it at the end here. But Jam, I want to start with Mikel Brown Jr., a player who I mentioned may have. You can't hold it against me. But in the Take Vault episode, I talked about Mikel and I talked about Neoklis. So I think that this is already like a beneficial time of the season where we're watching actual games. We're seeing how these players are ingratiated on their teams. They're you know, playing alongside teammates now, and a lot of questions have the opportunity to be answered. But I want to start with the game against Ohio Jam, where Mikel Brown, who is the freshman guard out of Louisville, listed at 6'5", 190 pounds, 20 years of age. Against Ohio, he had 19 points, 7 assists, a steal. He was 5'11" from the floor. He was 3 of 6 from the three-point line, and he was 6 of 8 from the free throw line. Jam. He also played against Kentucky on Tuesday in a much bigger game. I had the opportunity to either watch that game or the Illinois versus Texas Tech game. I thought the latter was going to be a more entertaining game. I'm glad I watched that, but I went back and looked at the Kentucky game. There's a lot of good Mikel Brown stuff on that film as well. Jam, which way do you want to take this conversation with Mikel?
I guess let's talk about the performance in the Kentucky game, and we can kind of wrap, or I guess kind of encapsulate it with the Ohio game. But definitely want to start with that Kentucky game. That was the marquee game for him to start this week, and I thought like it was maybe breakouts a little bit too strong because I thought he's had some other good games to start, even if you include the exhibition stuff. But thought it was a very notable game, rivalry game, and in a big time atmosphere there.
I think so too. And you mentioned that it might not. I think it is the most notable. It does mean something to evaluators whenever you can get these guys matched up against like talent.
Yeah.
Dirty Dancer in the chat says, Can Kentucky start recruiting NBA guys again? I would say I agree with Norman Rad, who immediately responded back with they have some now. I
Yeah.
think they do, but this is not the Kentucky backcourt that we're normally used to seeing in the Coach Calipari days. And this is why I didn't watch this game, because I thought Mikel Brown had an opportunity to kind of slice up the backcourt, and he did. He had 29 points, 5 assists, 2 boards. He was 8 of 16 from the floor, only about 3 of 10 from deep, which is still pretty solid, and 10 of 11 from the free throw line. In that game, Jam, what kind of stood out to you the most about Mikel's performance?
Just really the complete package. Like, I'm gonna go ahead and really say that I believe that outside of Dan Peterson, like I don't think there's anybody else in this class to this point, and I can't see myself really changing. We'll see. Always have to be open to change new information, but I don't think there's a better blend outside of Darren Peterson of creative handle, multiple level scoring, shot making, and playmaking. Like, it's just an incredible blend of what Mikel can do offensively as the engine for your team. And he showed that with Kentucky, whether it was him on the ball, the pull-up threes, he's shown stuff off the ball with catch and shoot threes, transition threes as well too. Just the absolute mastery in the pick and roll, being out there was a lot of times where he really was looking to set the defender up with re-screens, be able to manipulate the screen and defender. There was one particular possession when he comes get the switch on Moreno, gives him an in and out move, turns him around, and then go right into his chest. And I think that's kind of been the theme for him. You saw that in this game in Ohio too. With his newfound growth spurt and getting more comfortable with his body now, and the newfound athleticism as well too, he's not afraid of going into the chest of defenders. Like, he is attacking once he gets downhill, and he's seeking contact. He's not really looking to avoid it. He's going right at defenders. He's looking to test people too, as we saw in this game against Kentucky. He comes down off a handoff down the lane, and he goes for the offhand slam, trying to look like John Wall. I loved every bit of it. We saw him in FIBA do the same thing in transition with the near poster dunk. So I'm just loving the way that he's been in attack mode. And then you saw that in the Kentucky game was the getting downhill, being able to show the pull-up three game, just the multiple level scoring, and then the playmaking. Like, I cannot leave out the pass of the game, in my opinion. When he's going to pick and roll, gets the rescreen, then goes between the legs, pocket pass, and gets the assist. Just some really nasty stuff. It was just crisp, the pacing, the confidence. And Mikel Brown, for me, and I'm sure like a lot of other people, entered the season as the top point guard in the class, and he's doing everything he can and then some right now to solidify that in my mind.
I think so too. There was so much goodness that you just had in that breakdown, Jam. The thing that I stood out the most to me was how much he was really feeling himself on his kind of pull-up jumper. That obviously carried over into the
Yep.
Ohio State game as well, but the confidence in the jumper was there. Showed great body control on his layups and around the rim and drew some fouls with that. That was honestly like the hang up that I had with Mikel, is because historically speaking, poor, like not just like a bad finisher at the rim, both in terms of efficiency and frequency, but flat out poor. Like one of the worst, like some of the worst numbers within this class. And I was like, okay, if you and some of the questions that I still had, or some of the kind of observations I've had, are still there with him in terms of the quality of assists that he gets. Um, but he's answering a lot of questions for me, and the
Yep.
biggest one has to be like the willingness to get physical, how daring he is, how brave he is to get into the paint. He's not afraid to play through the chest of somebody. He will then counter that with some finesse, little kind of half circle pivot to the middle, and then fade away into like that mid post pull up. I
Mm-hmm.
think that there's a lot of goodness in there. A lot of his passes were on point in that Kentucky game. 5 assists. He had 1 turnover off of a bounce pass, and it was okay. It wasn't like, oh my gosh, this is a detrimental turnover. But overall, I was just really encouraged with his willingness to mix it up in that Kentucky game. And I think that I can just carry this over to the Ohio game as well. He got to his spots really well. A lot of looks came off of his own creation. Felt confident in the jumper again. My favorite play of the Ohio game, Jam, was when Ryan Conwell was playing just mad dog defense, pokes the ball up in the air, and then here comes Mikel, just
Yep.
Spider-Man jumps in the air,
Yep.
catches the ball midair with his right hand, and just using his own arm, back, and core strength, just whips the ball up the court for a transition layup opportunity. And this brings me back to a question that I talked to Metcalf with last night. I want to get your opinion on this as well. I think that there's a lot of similarities in the style of play of that of Mikel Brown and Christian Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And when I asked the group chat, like, hey, what's really separating these two? Because Christian's having himself a heck of a season as well and doing a lot of incredible things, similarly built guard. But the resounding answer that I got back was size and athleticism. I say, okay, the
Yep.
size I think is obvious. I need to see the athleticism separation a little bit more on film, and then lo and behold, that Spider-Man pass was right there. So I'm like, okay, I see the separation between those two guards. And I think that you have to ask yourself, or maybe you don't have to. I find it beneficial for me to ask myself, what separates player A from player B? Player A, normally a higher ranked guy. Player B, probably not thought of as talented. But when you ask
Mm-hmm.
those type of questions in my head, Jam, it really kind of helps break up the tiers or the clumps of, types of players that are both having really good years. Do you kind of do that same sort of thought exercise?
Yeah, without a doubt, and it's good to do it early to kind of think about what names could be similar. And I think that Christian Anderson and Mikel Brown, that's something fantastic that you brought up, that comparison between them two. There's a lot of similarities about how they get the job done, some of the same weaknesses as well, too. And I couldn't agree more with the difference really just being that size and athleticism. Pre-growth spurt, Mikel Brown, I think, was more of a conversation if they were both kind of stayed stagnant. And then I think, just to shout out to Christian Anderson, I think he looks like at least a legitimate 6'2", maybe 6'3", but I think he's
Yeah.
not 6'1", 6 feet like he does. Have some decent size to him. Not obviously the ideal size for a lead guard, but I think it is certainly he's certainly taller and longer than what he gets credit for. But yeah, just the athleticism that Mikel Brown has, and then the size, the length as well too. I think there's an advantage there too. And you've seen it. You talk about the pass that he made, and then just the explosion when he's taken off in the lane, when he has a runway and he's looking to dunk on people. The dunks that he's already had so far. So I think there's just a lot of more explosion and with the takeoff and stuff there too. I would hope to see a little bit more on the defensive end. I think they're both kind of a wash defensively right now.
Yeah.
Want to see them both get after a little more defense, or at least become a more competitive defender at the point of attack when they get those opportunities, and at the very worst, a better defensive playmaker. And I would venture to say this: I think they're very comparable, and I don't think it's as wide as a gap as the size and athleticism. But I do think Mikel Brown's a better passer than Christian Anderson. I think Christian has shown that he can pass the ball. Has taken a playmaking leap this year with the ball in his hands more, and that's been absolutely fantastic, and he'll continue to do that. I just think Mikel Brown is maybe just a hair or two above Christian Anderson in that department too. But just kind of wrap it up there. Just the physical tools, I think, is the biggest difference between the two.
And I would say that Mikel does have the hair advantage over Christian Anderson as well, with the fro that he rocks sometimes. And I also find it interesting. This doesn't really matter to me, but I know that in some conversations, I could easily see this being like a tiebreaker almost. But Christian Anderson is actually a day younger than Mikel Brown Jr. Like literally a day younger than Mikel
I
Brown.
hope people aren't using it as a tiebreaker. I'll just come out and say it. I just hope that's not what people are using at the end. I don't care if he's a week older, a month older, 2 month older. That does not matter to me. Like, you're going off what the talent is and what you see them projecting out to be from the floor and the upside, no matter what the age is.
I agree with you. Again, it's a funny
Yeah.
little just kind of like anecdote. But then looking at the Ohio game, I did also notice, Jam, and we can spend a moment just talking about like areas of concern.
Mhm.
There were some moments where he dribbled into trouble, like dribbled into like a wall of defenders, and had some kind of silly turnovers. But by and large, I respected and appreciated his approach to the game. But I do think that he still a young pup, still has the propensity to kind of still dribble into trouble and try to do a little too much with the ball. But I feel like as the season has already gone on in the early stages, the number of times that you see him do stuff like that has already kind of gone down, which goes into like this, he's like QB1 almost as a basketball player. He's the Cody Rhodes of this draft, if you will, the QB1. Tries not to make the same mistake more than once. And
Yeah.
again, between those two games, very low number of turnovers. He's playing with some talented people in the backcourt. He's making these experimental front court players that Louisville just has to roll out there with, Ali Khalifa, Frew, Kashawn Pryor. These are not like the creme de la creme of collegiate big men, but Mikel is doing everything that he can to play to their strengths and kind of accentuate the team at large.
Yeah, he really is, and just off to an excellent start. And I think that he's going to continue to get better and better as the season goes. And what's just been an incredible freshman class, and we'll have to see what other guards step up. But he's certainly leading the way, and I think there is a pretty sizable gap between him and that next lead guard for me. Well, outside of Darren Peterson, of course.
Yeah, who has been hurt, and
Yeah,
it looks like
yeah.
he's trying to duck Cam Boozer whenever, they're gonna be playing each other on Tuesday with the injury situation, that Peterson has. Maybe in stock preservation mode, Jam. I don't know if that's, gonna be obviously just kinda being lighthearted here, but it is
It's a
unfortunate that
hamstring though,
Peterson.
right?
Yeah, it is
Oh yeah,
unfortunate
be
that he's.
careful.
Yeah, you can't risk it, dude. You got a lot on the line, right? Look at what
Mhm.
JQ is doing right now with Kentucky. And the way things look, maybe our little prediction, Jam, about maybe you just kind of like just see what the class does before you make a decision on how you feel about coming back. But Jam, did you have any more Mikel Brown Jr. thoughts that you wanted to get out there before we move on to our next guy?
Nope, we can move on.
All right, let's do that then. So the next player that we're going to talk about, again, this is a big serving of humble pie for your guy over here. Players that I was a little bit down on, but I'm coming around. There's just sometimes, Jam, there's players that I want to see what they look like when they come over, especially a guy like Neoklis Avdalas, who is a freshman, I'm going to call him a perimeter player because I think some people will look at him as a guard, some as a wing, maybe some as kind of like a playmaking forward because of the size that he has. But freshman playing at Virginia Tech, listed at 6'9", 215 pounds, is also 20 years of age come the draft. In the win against St. Joseph's Jam, he had 14 points, 7 assists, 5 boards, 2 blocks, 6 of 12 from the floor, 2 of 5 from deep, and missed his only free throw attempt. He is also playing today of the recording, so we're not going to have notes on his performance for today, but definitely, best believe that we're going to go back and look at that and evaluate it as well. But Jam, I'm just want to lead off by saying that that I was not the biggest fan of Neoklis Avdalas coming into the season. Again, take fault guy that I had where it's like, I can't see it. I need to see what he looks like playing American style ball. Virginia Tech feels weird, and sometimes weird is fun. In Virginia Tech, Jam, I don't have to tell you, that's in your neck of the woods. They're a fun looking team, dude. What do you think about how Neo's hit the ground running so far?
Yeah, I think it's been a great situation for him so far, and especially obviously when you talk about that Providence game where it's just like, all right, if it hits, especially offensively as a scorer, this is what it looks like. Him manipulating pick and rolls, getting to his spots, mid-range, step back threes, all those type of things, getting to the rim with craft and some strength as well, too. So I think that's ideally what it looks like. And for me, I want to come out and just say before we kind of really get into it, I think you're absolutely justified in your concerns, and especially after how he played in U20s coming into the season. And when you look at the stat line, of course, 14, 7, and 8 during U20s, led the tournament in assists, even had a triple-double. All that's fantastic. And it shows just what he can do with the ball in his hands, when he's free, and that's kind of translated so far. But then also in U20s, he shot 30% from three on 5.1 3-point attempts per game and 39% from the floor. So granted, when you see that type of performance and kind of watching his tape before FIBA as well too, it's like, all right, where exactly is the shooting? What is that threshold that he's at now? What does he have to reach? And the Providence game showed like what it could look like if he is at like a sufficient shooting level. Maybe he was hotter than he normally is there. But the thing that I've really found in watching the 3 games, I say 2.5, I saw the first half of the Charlotte game, is that he's getting a lot of the shots that he really wants. A lot of the same shots that he made in the Providence game, he just missed, in the Charlotte game, and then also against the St. Joseph's game, hit a lot of the same shots too. I want to see him continue to be aggressive, getting downhill. That's when I thought that he was at his best. I just kind of tracked in the Charlotte game that he shot 3 up to the point that I got to. He shot 3 fadeaway jumpers, which he did hit in the Providence game. He can go to, but it's like, man, keep getting downhill with that size and that athleticism, that craft, So at least 3 out of the 7 shots that he took against Charlotte were these like mid-range fadeaway jumpers, which is cool that you can get to off stop, reverse pivot, turnaround, shoot, and that type of stuff, shooting over smaller defenders. But want to see him continue to be aggressive, get downhill, use that size as a scorer. Have you liked what you've seen so far with him as a scorer? Are you a little skeptical about the shooting? Because I'll say I still am skeptical about the shooting. Not that he won't be a good shooter. He's probably more of a shot maker than he would ever be of a shooter. But for him he could be a low 30s 3-point shooter. I'm not quite really sure what that threshold is, but I'm looking forward to see, where he will actually end up. Do you have those same thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think the shot was my biggest thing coming into the year,
Yeah.
but there's been so much more kind of like skill ball stuff that he's brought to the table that I was
Yes.
anticipating. I said yesterday, I'll say it again today. I've been kind of a holdout, even watching the Providence game the way that I did. I was like, okay, that was cool. I want to follow up. I want to see what your next game looks like, because it's still early in the season. I want to see what the consistency looks like. And again, watching the St. Joseph's games, this obviously was not his like most dominant performance of the
Yeah.
young college season, but I was talking to Metcalf about this jam, and there were just so many possessions where I was like, dude, I really liked your approach there. You know, I like the mature approach to the game. I like the fact that he'll put his left elbow in or his left shoulder into somebody to create separation and then rise up and shoot in those mid-range shots. And like you mentioned, the touch can be kind of wishy-washy at times, but by and large, I like the process. I like that he's confident enough to pull up on the shot. I think that he's even confident enough to where he'll shoot off the catch as well. But what people are really falling in love with is not necessarily like the cool shot making stuff that he can do. I mean, obviously it's certainly a part of the evaluation, but the vision, the way that he maps the court on the offensive side of the ball is just there's hardly anybody else in this class. Like I would put him up there with Mikel and his ability to just kind of like set people up. The one thing I would say about a lot of Mikel's assists is that he's just by nature, he's playing alongside like Conwell and McNeely. And I feel like I'll say 70% of his assists are just from just moving the ball from the top of the key to the wing, and one of those guys will just like hit a jump shot. And that's still an assist, but it's not him sort of like bending the defense, where I think Avdalas does have that creative nature to his game, or at least the consistency, the volume over Mikel, that he will try some of these more like kind of more risky passes to advance the ball closer to the basket, as opposed to just being content with swinging the ball along the perimeter.
I can see that a little bit. I mean, I think Mikel does a lot of the same thing as far as manipulation. Even if he may not showed it to the full extent so far on a collegiate level, but just going back in the tape from FIBA and then high school stuff at DME Academy as well too. I think all that stuff is there. And I will say, obviously, with Neo being 6'8", 6'9", there's certainly more passing angles that are much more available to him as well. And I honestly don't think Neo has gotten as spicy as he will be just quite yet with his passing and the flair and
which
the
is
crap.
scary.
Yes. And I think that's definitely coming. He had one pass. Oh man, I'm trying to think what game it was. I think it was the St. Joe's game, if I'm not mistaken. But got the ball, rebound, finds Amani Hansberry running up the floor. He throws like this pass up the floor, and it just like barely kind of squeaks through, kind of takes some weird bounces, but it gets through a couple defenders, finds Hansberry, is all that matters, and he scores. Just the kind of audacity to try that, to fit it pretty much the length of the court, and then threw a little bit of traffic there at half court as well. So that was incredibly impressive, and it certainly won't be his most impressive pass this season. But yeah, just neat. And I'm glad you brought up his ability to shoot off the catch and his comfort there too, because I think we're all going to be keeping a close eye out what he does both on and off the ball. Yes, we know the upside is tied to what he does on the ball, but really the floor is going to be decided what he does off the ball. Can he catch and shoot? Can he be a good timely cutter and a finisher and those type of things? Also curious to see if they let him do some inverted pick and roll stuff too, where he is the screener. Get him in a short roll and make a decision and be able to score and do some things. So I'm just curious to see how they continue to let him just rock out with the ball in his hands and just have a freedom, as this 6'8", 6'9" ball handling wing. There's not, as you mentioned, to kind of start with a discussion on him, there's not many people in college basketball, let alone really the world, who are 6'9", like him, with the ball skills, the feel, and the shot making ability as well.
I agree. And Nornrad asked a question in the chat that I feel is like fair. I think it's a fair question. He says, Neo this
We're gonna
year
bring that up. Yep.
or Jaeger last year. Who would you take today? I'm gonna lead off with this. Jaeger has already done better in the NBA than I anticipated. Not to say that he's been perfect, but there have been moments where he's looked more ready for the NBA than I thought he would initially. So I'm going to give Joman credit for the immediacy in which he's bringing his game to the NBA. That being said, I feel more confident in Neo's translation to the NBA. I think that, and again, talking about this yesterday, I would love your take on this. I think when you're that size, NBA teams will take years before they will give up on you if you have the height of eye creation advantage that Neoklis Avdalas has. And I think that it's more advanced than what we saw from Yegor Joman last year. I truly feel like I trust Neo to run an offense a lot more than Joman. I think Joman is going to be kind of more like that. Tertiary is probably going to be like his best role. You can probably put him in as like a second banana, like that second side creator, like if you need to. But I think Neo has that second side kind of basement. And I think there's the potential that where he could be the primary initiator if everything, the proverbial, if everything goes right, I think that Neo has the potential to like orchestrate an offense jam.
Yeah, honestly, can I plead the fifth on this one? Like,
Nope. You're on a podcast, brother.
Really, at this point, I'm just gonna stay with Yegor only because of the sample size. It's just so early right now. I do, of course, like what Neo has done, especially the Providence game, as we keep bringing up, and I trust more of the shot making and kind of the creativity as a scorer more with Neo. Facilitation, I would say, is probably about the same. I like maybe a little bit more of the. Honestly, I can't even say that. I'm talking about defensive tools. I was about to say. I think they're maybe roughly the same. To be honest
I
with
don't
you,
know, man. I think that Neo has showed a lot more like give a crap on the defensive side of the ball, like in his early portions of college. And I think a lot of it was the strength component. I feel like Avdalas is obviously coming into college a little bit more ready physically than I think that Joman was. I don't not that I think that Yegor was like a poor tools like type player. He's obviously gigantic, but I just think the strength component that what Neo is bringing out, like he had 2 blocks in the game against St. Joseph. That's a well coached team. Like they're not world beaters, but he has a little bit of like willingness to get up in you a little bit as a defender, which is going to pull at my heartstrings a lot if you're talking about a guy who can also be like the best offensive player on your team potentially.
yeah, and I do think the tools are still similar, and I will stand by that. But like I do agree that kind of the care factor is more, but the tools, and you certainly the motors tied into a tool as well. But for the physical tools with the length, the projectable body, I think all that is very similar. It's going to be up uh to Demon, or how do you pronounce his actual last name? What's the official pronunciation?
Every NBA podcast that I listen to, and I listen to a few, I listen to a lot of podcasts. Like I make the joke that I don't think my family knows what my ears look like anymore. They say Joman is how he's
Joman,
pronouncing
okay.
it. And I'm pretty sure, if I remember correctly, that he said in college last year that you pronounce it Demon. So I don't know why he keeps changing the way that he pronounces his last name. Maybe he's just having a lot of fun, but I think the correct pronunciation as of today's date is Joman.
Yeah, Joman, and then he 1.6 stocks per game for him last year at BYU too. So there was some defensive playmaking there too. Overall, I do trust Neo as a shooter. It remains to be seen because I feel like they're so similar in what the outcomes could be and what their kind of like low, medium, and high outcomes are. Like it's such a, I think that, and as you mentioned, Christian Anderson and Mikel Brown, those two I think there's just such perfect comparisons to keep in mind as we continuously evaluate, all 4 of those guys. Do you think, like, One name that kind of just popped in my mind as a potential outcome. Do you see any Kyle Anderson
Hmm.
involved in Neo? Maybe we're not talking about like the highest of outcomes, of course, but when you're talking about if he's going to potentially be a supporting role player that still can facilitate and do a lot of different things out of pick and roll with some defensive tools.
I don't know if I see Anderson because Anderson, I think, is better defender than what Avdalas is. I think that there might
I
be
think he's
some
grown into
Jovic.
that though. Like UCLA, Kyle Anderson. They progressed to get there.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. I think that there could be. I think there's potential. I see some Jovic, like Miami Heat's
Okay.
Jovic could be a potential outcome there. There is like you do see like the toolsy forward outcome, like maybe
Hmm.
Boris Diaw type of a player could be there. Who again was a great defender. I don't know. Kyle Anderson, I think it's on the table.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a lot cooler or a lot of a more tempered comparison than the Luka Doncic comparisons that were
I
going
thought
around.
I thought we were going to get through it without mentioning
We
it.
got to. Them's the
Yeah.
rules. I mean, clearly we don't think that he's going to be Luka Doncic.
Some people might, honestly, to
Yeah.
be to be frank, especially after the Providence game, as we'll continuously bring up because that's and stylistically, of course, that's what it looked like.
Well, dare to dream. I mean, I would love to be wrong and him be as good as a Luka Doncic. Like, I just don't see it now, but who
Hmm.
knows, man? Like,
Hmm.
we never really know until we figure it out. But Jam,
Exactly.
do you have any other Neoklis Avdalas thoughts?
Um, One thing
Okay.
I will say about it, it's just obviously a one game type of situation there. But in the Charlotte game, just wasn't as impactful on the glass as I would like for someone that is 6'8", 6'9", and has the ability to grab and go and really do some things and get you an offense there. And I think you can kind of fall into more than one rebound, at that size. At the end of the day, I just want to see if you do not have it going offensively, the shot isn't going, or whatever the situation is, what else are you doing to impact the game? Obviously, facilitates, controls it, and I get all that. But just things like that on the glass, I always like to see that. I feel like that's easy money for them, and it helps the team. You're helping the bigs rebound, and then you're putting the team in an advantageous situation as a 6'8", 6'9" wing that can rebound, grab and go, and can
Mm.
already get you some easy offense in transition.
Yeah, I like that take there too, Jam, because I mean, in the St. Joseph game, he had 5 rebounds. You would think against Charlotte that he, like you said, he would trip, fall, and grab a rebound. Walk into the game with one
Yeah.
already on the stat sheet, right? Um, Yeah, you do wanna see that, even if it's not, full court bringing it up, but just some hit aheads to somebody, there's a potential that you can do that. I think that's a fair thing to do, and, even though I am growing to appreciate Neoklis Avdalas, I'm still kinda having a more tempered approach to where I'm ranking him. I don't have him in my top 10 yet, but I definitely have him in my top 25. So
Yeah.
I'm curious to continue to monitor what Neoklis does throughout the rest of the year for sure. But Jam, let's hit this break and then we're gonna talk about some guys who the chat didn't even know who this guy was on the picture at first. So we're gonna come back and talk about some men of mystery on the other side of this break. Just hang tight. We'll be right back. All right, we are back here live on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show. Here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel, we're also on your podcast player of choice. I'm Stephen Gillaspie, joined by my co-host Jam Hines, where we just got done breaking down week 2 of the college basketball scene. We talked about Mikel Brown Jr. and Neoklis Avdalas, two guys who I had some questions on. They are doing a great job of answering those questions now. Jam, let's get a little international on
Yes.
the show. We haven't really talked about very many of the international talent. Throughout this past week, I took the time to watch a couple of dudes who who I know are being tracked, who are being monitored to potentially be drafted this year that I just have not watched their film on. I thought this would make me more intelligent just for watching film. And I came away really digging Luigi. We're going with pronunciation on the last name as Suigo, who is an international big man playing for Mega. He is listed at 7'2", 240 pounds per their website. And by the time the draft hits, he will be 19. He's currently 18. Jam, he is 18 years old, starting for Mega, and the playing time is good some days. Other games, last game that they played was on the 14th. He played about 14 minutes, still started and still made an impact, even though it was a low scoring outing for him. But Jam, I'm having a hard time with like who's going to be the best big man in this class. Now, granted, Houston just played earlier. Kristen Ack just had himself a great game playing against Auburn, even though they don't really have like, world renowned big man, but he still took advantage of the situation, had a great game. I think Luigi Suigo has a real shot of like rising the ranks as the season comes along because of the way that he plays. That's how I feel, Jam. Why I have a co-host is because sometimes I need to be toned down. Where are you at with the film dive that you had on Luigi?
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing them to my attention. I had not seen much of him, just clips here and there, and hear some people talk about him. It's the first time I actually got to really sit down and put the film on. So I appreciate that. And the tools are there. Like he looks every bit of 7'2". He's long. The cell is, a stretch big that can block shots. For me, the jumper looks very comfortable. Like he's mostly wants to space the floor and kind of attack closeouts and play along the perimeter. I do worry about, before I kind of get into the rest of the game, but he is shooting early this season 38% from three on 13 attempts. So, and he's very comfortable, as I mentioned, shooting the three, picking pops, good release. I'm just a little worried about what the rest of the game looks like and just how good of a shooter that he is, or how good of a shooter he will need to be. Good mover, but not a great mover. At his size, not the most vertically explosive type of athlete. Is a lob threat, but not like one where you are going to be throwing it really to the top of the square for him to go get. It's more because if he's tall and long, that's kind of more what his vertical athleticism comes from. And it's a shot blocker. Still trying to figure out if he's more of a shot blocker or a rim protector. Obviously, with the size, is 7'2", being able to take a lot of space in the lane. That certainly helps become more of a rim protector. But just with him lacking those true explosive physical tools, I have a hard time right now getting past that, and especially if there's not a NBA skill right now.
I think that that's totally fair. And again, reason why I brought this up I've mentioned his name to a few people, and I genuinely want feedback on him because I see some special stuff with him. And Jam, I'm not the type of person, I feel like most people at No Ceilings know this. Like I don't easily fall for like the beanpole who just parks in a corner and shoots threes. Like I was not a John Butler guy at all. I just was not. But when I watch Luigi, and again, I'm considering that he is 18 years old playing in a professional league, right? So minutes, impact, I will weigh certain things differently for that type of a prospect as opposed to a D1 blue-blooded prospect who is putting up like numbers. It's just you kind of have to weigh the calculus different because there's legit repercussions on if the team does not perform to a specific standard. I also want to bring this up too because I feel like this is important for people who don't really get in on the international scene, and that's again something I'm trying to get better at myself, so I'm not the expert by any means. But to me, it means something that schools like Illinois, who sure, another European dude on the team, why not? Why not? But Illinois recruited him. Kansas,
Yeah.
Kentucky, Indiana, BYU, Texas A&M, and Purdue, that's Big Man University, right? a lot of prestigious schools were going after Luigi. So other people are seeing the talent and the potential in him too. In the game that I just mentioned, where they played up against KK Zadar on the 14th, he had about a 10-day stretch where Mega didn't play from their last game. And in that game, he only had 3 points, 4 rebounds, and 1 assist. But what I like from watching him jam is the process. Okay, so even though that there weren't like mind-blowing numbers, I think that he does. You asked about like what the NBA skill is. I think that he shows excellent passing ability. Like I went through and watched his tape against Zadar this morning, and I'm watching him just work the left block and just completely just rocket passes cross court. I'm trying not to be hyperbolic, but I can't think of a better way to just he completely whipped the pass like on point in the shooter's pocket in the opposite corner, and the dude missed. He had 2 of those plays in this game. He looked good defending out in open space. He had moments where I'm not going to pretend like I know everybody overseas and who they're playing. It's like I'm just not going to do that. But he was going up against a ball handler and clearly a guard, and he's just sliding his feet and staying in front of him, and he completely walls off the driving lane to where the guard has to like dribble out and reassess like what the plan of attack is going to be for the offense. He also just like straight up defended a guy in isolation, a small guy out on the wing, and altered a shot just because he is a massive human being. He boxed out well, and I wish that he was a little bit more aggressive at high pointing the ball, and going for his rebounds, because I feel like sometimes that he thinks that like as long as I box out my guy, maybe it's a team philosophy that the guard will come in underneath, grab the ball, and grab and go. I don't know. Like sometimes teams just scheme things up that way. The old Russell Westbrook, Oklahoma City Thunder rebounding philosophy. But I wish he was just a little bit more aggressive and the rebounds. But that's not to say that he's a bad rebounder. He's obviously an awesome rebounder as well. He made 1 3, missed a couple, but he wasn't like overly aggressive in looking to score. But the fact that you can put him at so many different places on the offense just opens things up for so many people on your team. So I like watching him operate from those areas on the floor, Jam. I think that he does have the potential to be like a very talented big man. Like if not in this class, maybe next year's, but I do think that in the early portion of the season, there's a lot to be excited about with a guy like Suigo.
Yeah, there are definitely some fun tools there when you talk about just the size and the passing feel that he is showing, and the touch, of course. A couple things that you said that really stood out to me, and start with the aggression. Love the word for him. Like he needs to be more aggressive, not just on the glass, but when he is in the paint. Like you're 7'2", go try to dunk. I don't need to see, off balance layups or where you are kind of shying away from contact a little bit. No, you aren't, the most athletic in the lane going to be dunking on guys. But when you are 7'2", be physical. I want to see more of that physicality. And when you are that size, if you try to be physical, you don't know how that's going to affect the opposing players moving forward possession by possession. When they see you being aggressive, trying to dunk, they may make a business decision the next time around. They may be slow to rotate. Like though, all those things certainly go a long way in playing that mental game that ends up giving you a physical advantage and taking advantage of your own physical advantage that you do have. So I do want to see more of that from him. And then the passing feel, I think it's great that he's able to really whip passes out of the post and things like that. When I look at it just at the NBA level and just kind of project them moving forward, it's like, all right, it's wonderful that you can do that, but you aren't a good enough scorer to get those touches in the post. Even if you get a mismatch and a switch, teams aren't going to W. It's going to be like, hey, go to work. So that kind of negates some of the passing that he may be looking to do out of the post. And something that I want to continue to watch and look forward to is how is he making passes playing out of DHOs at the elbows and, kind of some hub stuff, short roll, some of those things were in actions where he should get the ball a lot more in the NBA level. And I wanted to see how his passing field blossoms from those situations.
I would love to see those things too. I don't know right now in the early portions of their season as well. I
They're not
believe
giving it
he's
to him.
yeah, I just 5-6 games I think
Mhm.
last I looked for Mega right now. So he is very much still figuring things out. And again, 18 years old, playing a
Yeah.
professional league, starting for a program, an organization like Mega. I think that means something, man.
It
And
means a lot. Yeah.
how many times have we seen you again? This is me trying to like maybe I'm like overcompensating the other direction, but I don't think that you can look at production for a teenager in an international league like one for one comparison. Like I think that he does obviously, and that's what I mentioned with the rebounding as well. I think that
Mhm.
there is like some aggression that you need him to be able to do, but he's got tools you can't teach. He's got feel that you can't teach. He's got skill that you can't teach. I This is like the type of dude that like I'm like, okay, I will bring this guy onto my team. And if I have to slap him in the face every morning before he walks into the gym just to make him mad, like I'm gonna do that. All right. But I think that he is learning. I think that he is
Yeah.
learning, and I think that he is trying to establish himself within this league. Just a fun name to monitor for moving forward. I think the upside could be tremendous this year or next. I'm not going to sit here and proclaim that he is the best big man in this class, but I do think he has the potential to be. And I think that that's worth kind of monitoring, Jam.
Can I give a quick rank 'em for you here to see how you're
Let's go.
feeling? So are you going with Luigi Adeyemara or Magoon Gwath?
Ooh.
How would you rank those three guys?
I'd say Mara Luigi Guath.
Okay.
I think I would do Mara Luigi
It's
Guath right
interesting.
now.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Luigi
Yeah.
would be clear third for me.
I think that that's okay. I think
Mhm.
that that's fine. So do you have Mara number one?
I gotta stick with the goon squad. I'm a gooner.
Okay, all right.
So
I Mara's having himself a little season. We might need to talk about him on a future episode as well.
oh, absolutely. Talk about can't teach those type of tools with that feel. Absolutely.
And it took him several years before he looked like he was kind of like this dorky big man, and now he's looking like he's kind of stringing along together. Again, I
Multiple
just long
schools. Yep.
term, I think there's something there with Luigi. I think there's just something there. But Jam, what we're gonna do now, there's something here. It's called a commercial break. We're about to hit this commercial break, and then we're gonna be back to talk about another international guy, but who's playing college ball that you brought to the table, who I am so excited to talk about, and I'm so glad that you brought him up. But y'all are going to have to hang on to the other side of the commercial break for us to talk about him. All right, we are back here on the No Ceilings NBA Draft Show. Here on the No Ceilings NBA YouTube channel, we're also on your podcast player of choice, where my co-host Jam and we are talking about players who have stood out to us here in the second week of what we're calling the college basketball calendar. We just got done talking about some international play from a guy named Luigi Suigo. We also talked about Mikel Brown Jr. and also Neoklis Avdalas. A lot of international love here on the show today, Jam, and let's continue that. UT Martin has a guy, and I'm going to butcher this name, so I'm sorry,
We
but
both are working on it.
yeah, we're working on it. I'm going to say the first name. I think you got the last name down, Jam. You ready?
Let's do it.
What's his last name?
Bukumirkovic.
Bukumirkovic. Perfect. A junior wing playing for UT Martin. 6'7", 200 pounds, 21 years of age. Jam, this is your dude. Was completely unaware that this man existed on planet Earth. I'm so glad that you brought him into my life, though. How did you come across this guy, just first off, Jam?
Well, first of all, shout out to head coach Jeremy Shulman over at UT Martin. Just, doing a roster dive of the start the season of the different rosters, obviously. And Jeremy Shulman last year apparently had the most international players in all of college basketball, 12 last year. I'm not sure what the number is this year, but I know he's right up there amongst the leaders again. And he was actually the head coach at Eastern Florida State Junior College, a powerhouse that he built. And last year was his first year at UT Martin. So he's taken and fully embraced that international approach. And one of the guys that came from Eastern Florida State by way of Serbia to UT Martin with Shulman was Bukumirkovic. And as you mentioned, 6'7", 200 pounds, positional size, long arms, the shot making, shooting. It's that combination with that and the ball skills is what the profile and the appeal is there. Very early in the season through the 3 games, 20 points per game, 6.7 rebounds per game, 2 stocks per game, and he's shooting 69% from 3, 75% free throw line, and it's 4.3 3-point attempts per game. So he's shooting on some pretty good volumes to start the season. It's a high release, high arc that he consistently gets. Quick release as well too, because he's been shooting over closeout contest. Saw they do in the most notable game against UNLV to start the year. He's played UNLV, Kentucky Christian, and Bradley. 23 points against UNLV, 20 points against Bradley. And actually against Kentucky Christian, 17 points, and he's perfect from the field. 7 of 7 from the field, 2 of 2 from 3, 1 of 1 from the line as well. So I really like his blend of shooting, the shot making, the confidence, and I'm always a sucker for rebounding. Like, he's rebounded at every level that he's been on so far. Over on the JUCO level, he averaged 7 rebounds per game his only year there in just 17 and a half minutes per game. Last year, his first season at UT Martin, 5 rebounds in 19 minutes per game. And this year, playing a larger role as the main offensive engine in 26 minutes per game, he's averaging 6.7 rebounds per game. So this guy's a deeper sleeper, of course, for me. Maybe in 2 years, he's someone that is potentially at Portsmouth. But just with the international experience, the pass, dribble, shoot profile there, it's someone I thought was worth tracking and bringing up.
And I'm so glad you did, dude. Another neat little stat. Did you know that he was in the 100th percentile in total offense per synergy jam?
I did not know that, but when you are as efficient as he's been these first 3 games, including a perfect game, yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, that's I don't know if you've seen the movie Grandma's Boy, but whenever
Yeah.
he gets the high score, he's like, "High score, what does that mean? Did I break it? Is that good? High score? Is that a good thing?" That's kind of like what immediately went through my head when I was like, "Okay, who's this guy that Jam is trying to get me to watch? Oh, 100th percentile total offense. Let me check this cat out. He's not a shrimp. He's 6'7".
Yeah.
He's not a grandpa either. He's 21 years old. So a lot of goodness in there. And then when I turned on the film, dude, I watched the most recent game that he had against Bradley, where you mentioned he had 20 points, 6 boards, and assists, a steal, was 9 of 14 from the floor, was 2 of 4 from the 3-point line. Dude, the shot is pretty. It's just like automatic.
Yeah.
So much touch, great arc on there. He had this nice little he was operating near the restricted area, and it looked like a video game shot, Jam, and what I mean by that is that he went on this, like he hit this, like, little post fade,
Oh,
and he
yeah.
so close to the basket, and you know how, like, whenever you're close to a basket and you time it, like, or especially on older games, but the shot would just go, like, straight up and then go down to the into the net. That's what it looked like. It was like, "Oh my gosh, there's so much touch on that shot." I was blown away by that. He plays quick, and what I mean by he's not fast, he's not the most fleet of foot athlete out there, but he makes quick decisions. He has a better first step than you would anticipate
Yeah.
player at a lower level school. I think that that first step just like really impressed me. In that same game, he had this nice crafty layup where he does like the Euro rip through, finishes with his offhand in the middle of the defense in a transition play. You mentioned the rebounding. He had this beautiful little tip in, little kiss, tip in, put back shot that he had. Dove on the floor doing the role player stuff. My man's not really looking to pass. I mean, obviously, I would love get others involved, but when you got it going like that, man, like they're giving you the ball because they feel like you're gonna do something good in
Yeah.
terms of getting it in the bucket. So Andrija Bukumirkovic was not a name that I was tracking through this season, but definitely a name that I'm monitoring moving forward, Jam. He might be on a future rendition of the sleeper prospects of the week that I've been putting out over at NoCeilingsNBA.com. So thank you for bringing that player to my attention, brother.
Oh yeah, no doubt. And this is the last thing that I'll mention about him. I know that really the overall shooting profile isn't exactly what you will want from someone who were labeled as a shooter or a real impactful shooter. The first year, as I mentioned, and the JUCO level, he did shoot 39% from three, but it was really low volume, and that was 1.4 3-point cents per game. And then his first season at UT Martin last year, he once again shot low volume, 1.4 3-point attempts per game, and he shot it at 29%. So he has shown a consistent improvement, and I think just the history of being a kind of a shooter and shot maker, and then kind of digging deeper a little bit into those JUCO numbers. He shot 42% in conference, so that's certainly a positive. And as you mentioned, just the fluidity of the shot, he looks like a guy that can shoot. And I think at the end of the day, when we get to the end of the season, that the numbers will bear that.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great opportunity for him to demonstrate a larger sample size with a great role, albeit on a low major school. It's going to
Yeah.
be interesting to see how he does in that game. Jam, the last guy that I wanted to talk about, and this has not been his finest week of the games that he's played, but I see some really good things in this player. Keaton Wagler, the freshman wing from Illinois, 6'6", 185
Yes.
pounds, will be 19 years old. The 2 games that he's had this week, Jam, 15 points per game, almost 7 rebounds, 1 assist, a half a steal. Shooting split's not great. 35, 22, 82. I think that there's a lot of growing pains this week. This week he had his first real experience going up against Texas Tech. That's a tough team to kind of cut your teeth against. But I think for a player who had, just to be frank, zero expectations coming into the season, there's been some fun moments with him where there's like these little tinges of shade and sharp. And what I mean by that is like he's not like a nuclear scorer, but what he is he's a volume guy. He's got the length and the frame that kind of reminds me of Shade and Sharp as well. But he'll do the stuff away from the ball that I like too. You know, he'll mix it up on the defensive end. He'll go after rebounds. He had a lot of offensive rebounds in that Texas Tech game. And when you look at a guy who he's not super duper muscular, but you wouldn't necessarily expect him to be a great rebounder. He goes in and mixes it up on the paint as well. And even though the efficiency isn't there, I love the confidence that he's shown. I think that ultimately, like the efficiency is going to pay off just by the process that he is playing with already this year, Jam. He plays hard, dude, and I think that there is some goodness there. And then David Mirkovic was another dude that I kind of entertained bringing up this week, another Illinois player that I could have talked about. But I think Keaton's got some kind of underlying potential there.
Yeah, he definitely does. I'm glad that you brought him up. And I wish he had that shade and sharp athleticism though, because if he had that,
Yeah,
like I would be honestly, I would be very tempted to put him in the top 40, I would say.
yeah,
Because I do like a lot of the other tools. I want to see what type of athlete he is. I haven't seen that explosiveness, more kind of a crafty athlete. Um, but when you look at it, it's the pass dribble shoot skill set that we always covet from wings. And the game against Texas Tech, near double double, 11 points, 7 rebounds. You talk about his work on the glass, especially on the offensive glass as well
yes,
too, which is pretty crazy. He's averaging 6.5 rebounds per game through the season. 4 of those on the offensive glass, and one particular offensive rebound stood out to me against the Texas Tech game. Your man Mirkovic was posting up, doing his thing, And on the other side, on the other block, as Mirkovic is about to go in and I think he shot the hook, but he was going for some attempt there. You see Wagler on the other side battling, boxing out on the other side, trying to get position. The ball goes up, he's fighting for it, and he's scrapping. He gets the rebound in traffic, and this I'm also Obi Toppin almost. JT Toppin is in there trying to grab the rebound too. And it is Wagler that comes in, gets the rebound in traffic, and draws the shooting foul. And he's always looking to stick his nose in on the glass, especially in the offensive end. And I thought that particular play really illustrated that. And some of the confidence and also patience I've liked that he's shown as a scorer. One possession in that Texas Tech game, had an isolation top of the key, shot clock's going down. He dances a little bit, hits the spin, gets separation defender, smooth jumper, middle of the lane at the free throw line.
Yep.
And then what really made me go crazy the next time, I think a couple possessions later, very similar situation. He gets to the middle of the lane, hits the spin, shot fake, then step through with the offhand layup, but he completely smokes it. Obviously, it sucks that he smoked the layup, but I love the fact that he went with the same move and showed the counter, the footwork, and the skill to get there. And that's going to fall way more times than not. So I already just love the counters and the craft that he showed just with that. So that was incredibly exciting for me to see from him. And you already mentioned this, the shooting confidence. Like, I think he's going to be a real shooter. He's shooting 35% from three right now. Confident, good range. I like the way he gets downhill as well, too. Really isn't too shy of trying to really seek out contact at a contact finish in that Colgate game as well, too.
Yep.
And one particular play, I want to see more of the playmaking from him, of course. One particular play that stood out to me because I like the way that he's been utilized as a screener. And one play they went an inverse in Texas Tech game. They ran an inverted pick and roll with him and Mirkovic. So they get that. There's nothing there. Then they just go back and flip it. So then it should come back just a regular pick and roll where it's Mirkovic setting the screen. And then now it's Wagler as the ball handler. And then they once again run it. And then they finally get the switch they're looking for. And Wagler's very patient on the empty side with this and allows for Mirkovic to get in the post on Christian Anderson, and he scores. So I just like that type of patience that he showed right there, just making sure he surveyed, wasn't in that big of a rush, and found the right play. And just some really quick background information I want to throw out there for him.
Yeah, please.
A 4-star recruit outside of the top 100, 2025 Kansas
I was about
Gatorade
to say,
Gatorade Player of the Year. So he got away from Bill Self there, so that's I think it's a fantastic pickup there for him to get out to Illinois. And there's some of the tangible stuff that I like. Obviously, when you are a highly rated prospect, state Player of the Year and all that stuff, you should be winning, kind of setting records to an extent. But for him to be 47-3 over his final 2 seasons at Shawnee Mission Northwest, I think that's incredible. And then that 47-3, he brought 2 state titles, the first 2 in the program history. So I think the winners and doing it that way, that stands out to me. Some of the tangible things, maybe not something to like really go crazy about, but I think in the back pocket, someone is a winner, done something like that as a program that's never won, and you do it back to back. That's something I think is worth noting.
Excellent, Jam. That was just a fantastic little biographical breakdown on him too. I learned a lot just from that breakdown too, Jam. So thank you for doing that, man. Is there any other thoughts that you have on him or any of the other guys that we talked about before we wrap up the show, boss?
Just Illinois, real quick. Mirkovic, like you said, just a man down there, looks very good. And I wrote in my notes watching the game, am I too low on Big Z? because he was looking phenomenal. And then not not to be like
He was
that, but
looking
the
like
second half,
Tomislav.
yeah, he was just like hitting threes, blocking shots, and then the second half, like they just took advantage of him defensively, top and going right at him. Lawan Watts going right at him too as well too. But hopefully, he can,
He
yeah,
looked good that game.
big fan. So hopefully, kind of clean that up. But that's just something about that game that stood out to me. I was like, whoa, am I too low on him? And then the second half came, and I was like, now I remember why I am where I am with Big Z. Still like him though, but there's a reason why he's in that second round range for me.
That's right. That's right. All right, Jam. So that's gonna do it for today's show. Before we get out of here, brother, we're gonna plug our work like we always do. I want to give a big shout out to the fans while we got you. Like and subscribe, please. You guys have been doing such a tremendous job on the YouTube front. We want to continue that march along. Right now, we're approaching 20K. That's a big deal. So thank you all so much.
Thank you
For help. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you all so much for helping us just to continue to achieve milestones, whether that be on social media, whether that be on the website at noceilingsnba.com, or here on the YouTube channel. We just appreciate the No Ceilings universe, so we want to throw that out. Jam, what do you have kind of coming along the pipe here for No Ceilings, brother?
Yeah, right now I'm working on a piece about Taylor Bowen at Alabama that will be out Friday.
Love it.
Yeah, so hopefully he has I forgot who they play on Wednesday. They have a game Wednesday, so hopefully it'll be good timing. And he's just solid. I don't need nothing spectacular, although I would love it. But hopefully it's not a dud of a game before the piece comes out. But it is what it is. I'm excited to see how he continues to progress and getting the piece out.
I love that, man. For myself, I've put out 2 weeks worth of sleepers of the week. The first one released, I believe, on a Monday. The second one released on a Saturday. Just trying to get that piece kind of introduced into the article rotation at noceilingsnba.com. Just keep an eye out on Saturdays. You're going to have a sleepers of the week piece at your disposal. And a lot of the guys that I've talked about had some great weeks. Shout out to Modest Vocatitis, who I think is just having a stellar season with the Texas Longhorns. I mentioned Ubuka Okori, who I wanted to get him in because I think here soon, Jam, I'm not going to be able to include him in sleeper pieces for much longer. He's having a great year at Stanford. So keep an eye out for that. On this upcoming Thursday, I'm going to have my Overtime Elite recap piece where I mentioned that I was up in Atlanta watching the Overtime Elite. I watched 2 games which featured at a minimum like 8 prospects who were ranked on, your ESPN's top 100s for the 2026, 27, and 28 classes. So I got to watch a lot of future guys that you're going to hear us talk about here on this show moving forward. That piece is going to be dropping on Thursday. And we have been doing the night shift on Saturday evenings. I don't know if over the next 2 weeks we're going to do that, just with the holiday season coming up. And to be frank, Jam, I don't know if you've looked ahead, but the next 2 Saturday slates just not very good. I don't think that we're going to have a good Saturday slate again until December 6th. So just to kind of put that discontent out there. But Jam, is there anything else that you want to say before we dip out of here?
Yeah, I'm excited to read your OTE piece, and I know there are pros and cons to OT. Everyone has their opinion about it, but I think the talent that they continuously be able to produce and help cultivate there is certainly been phenomenal, and I can't wait.
Undeniable. There's
Exactly.
NBA talent that has come through the Overtime Elite, the college ranks. They're just anyone who's done anything of note at Overtime Elite on the basketball court, they have gone on and been successful. And I'll just put this out there too, Jam, if you don't mind. The stuff that used to bother me, they've cut out a lot of that now, because I think that right now they understand that they're more of a grassroots organization now, as opposed to like a potential one and done factory like they were upon their first couple of seasons. So they've done a great job of like just bringing people along to kind of help. Like Jermaine O'Neal Jr. coaches the phase team, and he has like wrestler arms, Jam. He is just a huge human being to see. Him. Like scary to be around. But yeah, Overtime Elite has done a great job of. They are like a grassroots league now, and it's no different in my opinion, other than just like a couple quirky rules where like if you turn over, you got a guy behind you and you got a sprint and you have a 5-on-4 break. That's really the only thing that's different than watching a high school circuit.
Yeah, I definitely have to make my way to get down there at some point. It's like excited to read your piece and for them to continue to do the awesome work that they're doing there.
For sure. All right. Well, so we're gonna get out of here, and we'll be back, same bat time, same bat channel, next week. If we have our calendars right. If anything changes, we'll be sure to let you know. But for myself, for my co-host Jam Hines here, we will catch up with you all next time. Much love, y'all.